Hi, everybody, and welcome to Best Podcast Ever, where three idiots you don't know talk about a hobby you've never heard of. That's a blatant lie for a completely different reason this week. This week we have all three members here. I have Mike on my left, Kevin on my right, Mike waving to the microphone.
Hi. And then Kevin talking over me.
We are just this spitting image of professionalism right here.
Yes, we are.
So instead of talking about slot cars and getting way off topic, this week we're going to talk about our favorite racing movies and probably get way off topic.
Yeah, especially we're going to start right now already off topic because you said favorite racing movies, but you can't really mention racing movies without coming to Days of Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
So...
a movie we quote more than the racing movies we like.
Yeah, we
do. Run it into the ground.
It has every cliche you need, including give me some lovin' in a driving scene.
Give me some lovin'.
Ice cream. That's the one that probably... there we go.
You're what? Eating ice cream. Ice cream!
They hit the pace car.
Yeah.
That gets...
The pace car scene gets quoted a lot. We're eating ice cream gets quoted a lot.
You look like monkeys fucking a football. That's my best... that's my best Cousin Eddie line right there.
Yeah, that's...
I don't see him serious enough to own a race team after owning that RV.
Really the best thing about Days of Thunder is the Tyco product spun off from it. I mean, it's basically
the 5 Days of Thunder cars in the one Tyco car.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour commercial for the Chevy Lumina.
On a Pontiac.
Yeah.
Do you think City Chevrolet was actually real?
That was Rick Hendrick's Chevy dealership. In exchange for building the cars for the stunt cars that they used, he wanted his Chevy dealership.
They actually
promoted.
had a couple of like 3/4 scale cars too, because there's one rotting outside of Planet Hollywood in Niagara.
Really?
Yes.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, it's a
the
Mello Yello car. Yeah.
It's not a full size car though.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's probably 3/4 size. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3/4 size, and it is just rotting.
It's
out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw it twice. I was there twice in 2009 and then again in 2011 maybe, and it's in bad shape. I would be surprised if it's not just a
Do you
pile
know who
of
drove
rust.
one of those cars at the back of the field?
Oh, was it Bobby Hamilton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
Built his NASCAR.
I don't know who drove the other one, though.
Yeah. We'll never know.
Well, here's a confession that I can make. I don't think I've ever seen Days of Thunder all the way through because I only ever watched it when I was homesick.
Oh,
so you kind of do that thing where you like fall asleep and then wake back up
yeah.
and the movie's still going on. So I've seen all of it, but never in a complete line.
Yeah, it's well, it is how Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman met. So
Yeah, he shoved the sugar packet up her leg. That's also what him and Robert Duvall did in real life.
Send your hate mail too.
Tom Cruise looked like a bitch with long hair.
yeah, it's Days of Thunder was one of the, I think, building blocks of the rise of NASCAR in the 90s, though. I mean, it did work, which, it brought it to a mainstream audience that maybe wouldn't have been aware of it before, which I guess is why Driven then happened.
I mean, can we say that NASCAR got popular because of Days of Thunder and then essentially just write off Jeff Gordon forever so we can never have to talk about him ever again?
It was Days of Thunder and Jeff Gordon and IndyCar racing flushing itself down the toilet vigorously. it was a combination of those three things, I think, that set the table for the meteoric rise of NASCAR as a mainstream sport in the 90s.
NASCAR kind of hit its peak during the Bush era, huh?
Yeah.
Because like nowadays you see NASCAR races and you look at the grandstands and you're like, oh, those are empty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Watkins Glen was sold out.
Yeah, Watkins Glen.
Then again, that's a real track.
Yeah, Watkins Glen is one of the only tracks that I think they've sold out 3 years in a row, and it's the only track that's selling out anymore.
I'm sure they will ignore it, and they will continue to put those cars on ovals.
Yeah, it's funny because
the road course next year at an oval.
at Charlotte, yeah, they're running the infield course at Charlotte.
Roval.
Yeah.
Wait, so they're not going to run the Glen, or
They are. No.
They're adding.
they're adding more. Good.
The fall Charlotte race, so not the 600 miler, but the 500 miler will
in
be
their playoffs too.
Yeah, will be on the Roval. So
I saw the footage of it. It looks cool.
it's not. I mean, I haven't seen a race on that since like in the early 90s, IMSA was sometimes hard up for tracks, and they would use a lot of infield courses. Like, they used the Pocono infield course that nobody ever uses.
The majority of the oval, which is
Yeah.
cool because now you're having to set the car up for the oval.
Right. Well,
And
it's similar to
fully-
the Daytona road course where you use almost the entire oval plus a couple extra corners.
They only ran the IROC cars on that course.
Right.
That's actually a question that Mike would probably know the answer to. As far as tracks go, what's like the ratio of like oval to road course of the major tracks in the States? Is it still mostly oval? Because it seemed like, and that I might just only know the ovals again because NASCAR was like the popular thing growing
Buy
up.
Doty's headache powder and go to Bristol.
I mean, in terms of major tracks, I mean that's a tough, because then you get into like what counts as a major track. I guess hosting a top level race in any given year.
Yeah.
So like NASCAR, IMSA, IndyCar, Formula One, Circuit of the Americas is a major track. by
Road
definition.
America.
Right. I mean, if we're going to talk about road courses, I can rattle off.
Because like people know Laguna Seca, people
Right.
know.
Yeah, gaming. I mean, Forza has helped a lot. Well, first Gran Turismo had Laguna Seca, but Forza has adopted several other road courses and made people aware of them that maybe wouldn't, if they weren't into real racing, they wouldn't know Road America.
People know that the Watkins Glen actually has a longer part of the course.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Actually, Gran Turismo had Sears Point also.
Yeah.
Sonoma. Which is, I've always thought of as the poor man's Laguna Seca. But
I always loved the Forza fake track, the one that's in New York.
oh, that was a good one.
That seems like something that if only they could actually have a race.
The
there.
Forza New York street circuit was my favorite imaginary street circuit.
Yeah.
Where was that from?
That was three had it? Four didn't have it, I don't think.
I think it was every Forza from 1 to 3.
I think 1 through 3 had it, yeah.
And then they replaced it with the one in like the Swiss Alps. That's not real.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's in 5.
That one's
Yeah.
in 4 also.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's tough. There's some really nasty off-camber stuff in that one. For a flat street circuit, though, I thought that New York street circuit was fun, where you have the long constant radius around Columbus Circle the wrong way. Yeah.
That and also the fact that
that was the right way,
They
actually.
didn't have any controversy. They made the barriers like impenetrable
Oh,
forces.
okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember what you're talking. Yes.
So like if you miss that one like really tight
Yeah.
like pin turn, like
Oh,
your car just
you're over.
exploded.
Yeah.
You damaged everything.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah,
I was
there
only
were
on 3 that I played.
there was that
Yeah,
one
'cause you didn't have an
chicane.
original Xbox, and Forza 1 and 2 are on the original Xbox. Sorry, Mike.
I have one now.
Yeah, so after you went down through Times Square on the side that's First Broadway and then 7th Avenue, and came back up the side that's 7th Avenue and then Broadway, and you would just blast through a couple of chicanes, and I mean, it was so satisfying when you would hit them just right, but if you did not, your
Yeah.
car was over.
Actually, speaking of driving sims, because this is the episode about driving sims and not movies.
Yeah, we're already in the weeds.
At work, I happen to work at a VR company now, and we have got the coolest setup ever for driving a racing sim. We have the force feedback wheel.
Ooh.
We have the pedals that have pistons in them, so again, you can feel the anti-lock brake. We have a shifter that has a gate.
Oh my god.
And what's even better, outside of the VR headset that puts you in the driver's chair, we took a subwoofer pack and bolted it to the bottom of the chair.
Oh, so
and
you get
without the
engine
music
sounds.
on, there's
Yeah.
only the engine noise.
Oh, that's
So when
pretty
you
sweet.
rev the engine, the whole chair shakes.
And you get paid to do this.
Oh man, it's great. I want to make one for my house so bad, but
What-
it's so expensive.
What sims are you running on?
Project Cars, Assetto Corsa,
Yeah.
all the ones on computer, and Forza is coming to PC.
Is it really?
The next one is.
Oh, that's great.
Even though I already own both an Xbox One and
Yeah.
a gaming PC, I'm totally getting the PC version.
I
Sucks
haven't.
to be Mike.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't touched Forza since Forza 4 because I
360.
have I don't have
Would
an
you
Xbox
buy
One.
a PC though to do like the driving sim, like I said, with the force feedback
I
controller? and
might because
the
I've
headset?
thought about it. And like I've thought about getting into iRacing and some of those other things.
That is
but-
what there's a guy at work, and again, no name rule, but there's a guy at work who has the full super high end,
Yeah.
the belt driven controller as opposed to the gear one, so that it's like a real car that you can force and it doesn't
Yeah.
rip itself out of your hands. He has the racing chair. The only thing he doesn't have is he doesn't have the rumble, and he's talking about after doing it at work, it's like you have to have it
Yeah,
because when you drive like with a controller,
yeah,
it's fun. And I actually found that when I started with the rumble pack, if the rumble pack malfunctioned, I felt like I was numb. I couldn't feel the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was driving terribly.
Yeah, well, it's funny. After not playing Forza for a long time, I picked it up. I picked up Brian's Xbox One back in April, and I couldn't do it. Like the thought of driving a realistic sim through a controller, because I hadn't done it in about 2 years, it was terrible. I couldn't get through a single corner.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be able to scrounge up enough cash to get a rudimentary one in my apartment.
Yeah.
And then I'll have you guys over, or we need to get you in Manhattan to try the sim that's there. But yeah, that is not only the best racing experience I've had in a simulation, but the best VR experience I've had.
I believe it. That sounds amazing.
We've been doing a Formula Golf around Watkins Glen. And I think
Is it a real golf car?
a Formula...
Well done.
Racing
Well done.
against John Player specials,
What's funny is there is a Golf livery.
but like a real one.
I guess it has to be because it's Project Cars.
Yeah.
It just brings up a livery at random because Formula Golf is one of those where everybody's running in the exact same setup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing that around Glen, and I think my best time is like a minute 28 and change. But then the guy who
On
like,
the long course, that's a decent time.
it's a decent time, but the guy who like has his own setup at home is like rocking a minute 23, and I'm like,
Yeah, I just today happened to see a couple videos of DLC cars that I didn't know were available in Forza 6. That made me wish I had it.
I mean, I really hope the version that's on computer is a full version and not like a hack job port.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to buy it day one because I'm not an idiot.
Right.
I'll wait a couple weeks to see how it rolls over.
Yeah.
But I do have a gaming PC, and I do have an Xbox controller I can plug into my computer to
That's
just
true.
play with it until I go out and decide, hey, you want to know what I hate? Money.
Yeah.
And instead of setting it on fire where I would at least be warm, let me go ahead and go out and buy a force feedback controller with really good pedals, a shift setup, and a rumble pack to, mount to my terrible Office Max chair.
Speaking of throwing away money and getting back on topic, any of you guys see Driven?
I saw it when it came out on tape in like 2001.
A VHS version
You
of
want
it
to talk about bad racing
appeared-
movies?
It's true.
A VHS version of it appeared one day at NJ Hobby like a curse. And it got passed around for the longest time.
By whom?
We don't know where it came from. It just showed up one day. It was still in its... Yes, and the Richard Petty comic books.
Ooh.
I really hope a magnet destroyed it. Like that's what I think about that movie.
It's
See Richard Petty like eating like cereals in the comics or something that are called like Victorios or something like that, and they're shaped like Goodyear tires.
So, to my knowledge, there were only ever 2 Richard Petty comics. They were both limited edition #1, and they told the same story, but in a slightly different order with different artists drawing.
Was the second one called Kyle Petty's No Fear?
Richard Petty's Moderate Fear.
Moderate acceptance.
But yeah, I mean, Driven, let's address it. Because I hinted at it earlier, and I think, so, by the mid-90s, or by the late 90s, I should say, a couple of years into the IRL versus kart war, which we talked a little bit about when we played the illustrious IndyCar Racing 2000, on the other side of the divide was kart, which was the longer established series. It had been the successor to, the USAC IndyCars of the 70s, became kart in the 80s. Grew to pretty big renown on the world stage. I mean, attracted Emerson Fittipaldi out of retirement, who was a 2-time F1 champion. Brought Nigel Mansell over in 1993 as the defending Formula One champion, chose not to defend his title and race in kart instead. It's amazing how losing its centerpiece race, which was the Indy 500, flushed it in the span of 4 years. Because by 1999, they were like, what the hell are we going to do? And they said, well, Days of Thunder worked for NASCAR. Let's have a terrible movie made out of our racing series. And that was Driven.
So it's been said that writing a movie script is this like laborious, teeth gritting thing where you have to go and like you want to quit all the time because it's so long and terrible. Do you think the guy who was writing this like felt good the entire time?
Yeah, because he spent 15 minutes on it.
Probably wasted on Molson and had Stallone talk to him over the phone while he was doing it. I can imagine how that conversation. It sounded like Tony Danza talking into a zoo.
You know what? To a certain extent, this is true of Days of Thunder as well. But if you actually sit down and watch Driven, and please don't, but if you do, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it won't be obvious to you if you're not somebody who grew up watching the form of racing that they're trying to depict, but it's not recognizable in any way. Like, some of the tracks are recognizable, some of the people are recognizable because of their girth, Chip Ganassi. But, like, the actual way the races play out is completely contrived. The, like, significance of crashing,
18-speed gearboxes.
Yeah.
Where Fast and the Furious, I think, got that from. They must
Yeah,
have
I mean,
Driven.
racing movies love to focus on crashing, I guess, because it's a good action scene. But, you know, if you actually watch racing for real, like, obviously crashes happen, but it's not constant. I mean, it's not like a constant stream of crashes, and, like, the last car running is the automatic winner.
It's like Michael Bay.
Brandenburg's
Before
out.
Michael Bay.
22 to go.
Because, and that brings us to a good racing movie, Rush.
It's Tanto
Yes.
in the weeds.
Yeah, shockingly, out of the ashes of the racing movie genre, because I think, you know, it had been
Viciously
much
beaten to death.
beaten to death. I mean,
Thanks, Ricky Bobby.
yeah. You know, when I heard that Ron Howard was working on a Formula One movie, I thought, okay, you know, a serious high quality director who makes decent movies is taking on Formula One. Could be interesting. And then I heard the era was about. I thought, you know, that's promising, right? Because it's a
It was a well-known rivalry.
Yeah, the
Had a big
mid-'70s,
name
that was
McLaren versus
popular at the
Ferrari,
time.
Niki Lauda versus James Hunt. Skelestric had just come out with a box set of it, coincidentally, about 2 years before that. So, and then I actually, you know, I went to see it. I paid money to see it, which I'm loath to do
did
with a
too,
racing
yeah.
movie. And it was really good. Like, it really captured, you know, I think it captured the level of drama that makes racing appealing to people who enjoy it without it becoming melodramatic, which even good racing movies tend to fall into. And I think maybe because it was based on a true story, the temptation to delve into that stuff wasn't really there. Because my sort of touch point for these is the sort of essential classic racing movies that came out fairly close together. Grand Prix, that came out in the late 60s, directed by John Frankenheimer and starring James Garner. And then Le Mans, which was a pet project of Steve McQueen, who was in it and didn't direct it but produced it. Those made extensive use of real race footage, which for the time was technically amazing. Of course, they didn't have any CG to use, so they had to actually film whatever they wanted to do.
The film car for Le Mans is so loved that Fly actually made it
Most people
as
think
a
that car won.
as a slot car.
Yeah, I had it.
That was the number 20, right?
Which is not,
It's not the real one.
that's not the car that won in real life, and it didn't win in the movie either, actually, because
No, but everyone thinks because that's the car. That's the
so
one.
spoiler. Yeah.
Spoiler for the 19 whatever Le Mans race.
Well, he doesn't even win in the movie. Michael Delaney, the Steve McQueen character, actually loses, which is that's pretty daring if you come down to it for a sports movie to have the hero lose. It doesn't happen much.
Well, that's racing though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to their credit, they wrote a film where but anyway, technically both of those movies are really just stunning visually. The onboard footage is mind-blowing when you consider the fact that they were using actual film cameras, Panavision 35mm cameras. When you see the rigs that they had to build to, mount the stuff on the cars, it's amazing. On the side of Grand Prix, James Garner enjoyed driving the cars so much that he insisted on doing all the driving stunts himself, which ended up shortening his career somewhat, because when he did Rockford Files, he insisted on doing all the driving stunts and all the fighting stunts himself in that. And his endless string of back injuries actually forced him to give up the show. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a show about James Garner getting punched in the face, basically. So
You should watch that.
yeah, We should.
I just want to.
I actually have the box set.
Find the best shot of him getting punched in the face and just 10-hour loop it to like Gilly's theme or something like that.
I'm sure we could definitely do like a mystery science theater of just us watching racing movies and cut down like us watching 3 movies to like 20 minutes of entertaining bits.
Live podcast. Can you imagine that? All the trouble we could get into.
Most of what we do ends up being live because we don't edit anything.
Yeah, I do minimal editing on these, but as I edit myself and get back to the point that I was trying to make, as good as the racing footage in those is, and as much as the story, particularly in Grand Prix, kind of holds together, like it's a decent narrative. Le Mans is a little bit more of a sort of an impressionist film almost, where you're just watching a lot of race footage. Like you can tell it's just Steve McQueen having fun playing with race cars, but then like somebody
you're pretty much watching a Stallone movie.
Yeah, somebody sat him down and said like, you need a story. And he just pulled a story out of his ass, and there's some lazy writing. There's the at the beginning of the film we learned that like he was in an accident last year and the other guy died and he's feeling kind of guilty about it.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah, I mean the film opens with him driving from the town to the Mulsanne corner, and he's like then has a staring contest with the Armco. It uses his entire range because he raises his eyebrow a little bit. But the widow of the guy that died last year, like he's hanging out with her during the race this year, and just like they're talking whenever he's out of the car. And it gets a little bit dramatic. I mean, the famous line is, racing is life, everything else is just waiting, right? That's the line that we take away from the movie. It's a bit much, the story in both of them. Like, it's sort of the same thing happens in Days of Thunder. Like, there's this love story tacked onto it.
So does he actually bang the chick?
No.
Oh.
Not in the course of the movie. I mean, I guess.
Is that what they get at, though? Like, him banging the widow of the guy he probably killed?
Film buff, Mike. Normal dude, Kevin.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I don't think they really address it one way or another.
I'm the Homer Simpson. And,
Yes, but what about the boobs?
what about the football in the groin? I mean, that movie was great, but that had the football in the groin.
But to the credit of Rush, it doesn't fall back on any of that, right? And I think the fact that it's dealing with a story that was pretty dramatic in real life, I mean, Niki Lauda misses a chunk of the season because he's badly burned and then comes back at the end of the season to contend for the championship.
Only to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, even years later, one of the things we enjoy watching, which I'm going to count as a racing movie, even though it's a literal recap, the 1982 F1 Grand Prix recap
Yes.
by Clive James.
Yeah.
Even by then, they were announcing that the driver's strike was over, and they're like, so the drivers came out with their head held high, and one fresh from the kiln, and you just see Niki Lauda walk out, and you're like, okay, I guess we're making fun of him again.
Yeah, because he had come out of retirement at that point to drive for McLaren, where he would end up winning his last championship in 1984 as teammates with Alain Prost. They actually ended up separated by half a point because there was a rain-shortened race, and half points awarded for that. And Lauda beat Prost by half a point, and then Prost would win 3 following that.
Yeah, but again, I count that as a movie because those 3 years he did, 1982, 1983, 1984, I think it was 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Were amazing.
Yeah.
And you get to see the same characters.
Too.
That's true.
How Rush ends, and he's like, "You're the only man that gets your face burned off. It looked better."
That's probably true.
No, it isn't. It still looks pretty bad. Especially with that Mercedes hat on now.
Yeah, well, that doesn't look
No loyalty to.
Does he still call it Cappy?
Huh?
His hat had a name for the longest time. Niki Lauda was calling his hat Cappy, I think.
Oh, really? Well,
Is he bitter to Ferrari at all?
I don't think so.
I think he's a bit of a doddering old man these days when you listen to him
Nowadays,
talk. He knows what he's talking about still, but he forgets where he is.
Yeah. I mean, when he
Thinks he's
was
still racing.
in his McLaren days, my father tracked him down in the paddock at Montreal when he was there photographing a race, looking for an autograph on a picture, and Lauda didn't want to talk to anyone, so he was
Did he
just,
ask you for the date?
he was like stalking him up and down the paddock, and eventually just wore him down. But
Imagine him being a hard guy to track down at the track. He's probably the one guy all the kids stay away from.
yeah, I mean, he was.
The
I'm
goal
sure
of
he's
you
easy to
keeping the
spot.
quarter to
The
specifically
only
to
person
scare
wearing
children.
a Mercedes hat now.
Yeah, that was in his McLaren days. Although he was still personally sponsored by Parmalat, so left over from his Brabham stint.
Gotta
Dare
sell
we
that
get
ham
in-
somehow.
Did we get into the fan car at all?
The fan car?
The Brabham fan car that
The
was
BT-46?
BT 46, 7. Yeah, that was what 1978 or so. It happened.
It was a thing.
But Michael Andretti and Lotus did not let it happen for long.
Mario Andretti.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The
Michael
Andretti that
16.
was actually good at stuff.
It's funny. I was just talking about Michael Andretti earlier. To my knowledge, I'm not named after anyone in particular, but he was on the rise in his career around the time I was born. So I might have been named after him in that I am just completely hapless in life.
Your parents heard the name Mike a lot, and they're like, "Oh, hey."
leading more than 100 laps of the Indy 500 and then having the throttle cable break on lap 189. Yeah.
Which is very close to the 200 laps required.
Yes, it
however,
is. Or the previous year getting passed on lap 187. So
Do you use Texaco Havoline oil on all your products?
I do not. Nor do I use Craco products for anything because
Or Magnaflow exhaust on anything?
again, going back to how literally none of us buy anything based on what's sponsored on a race
yeah
car.
no.
In fact, right now, Mike is even wearing a shirt.
Yeah, I am wearing a shirt with the Jaguar XJR 14 on it that ran in its IMSA livery that's sponsored by Bud Light,
Are
which
there
is
any sponsors on there that we use?
Jaguar, no. Castrol, no. Bud Light, no.
Castrol. Actually, Castrol I've been known to use, but not because it's on the shirt.
Not because it's on that car on that shirt.
That's a coincidence. Bud Light, yeah,
It's on the
no.
wing.
I think it's just Bud Light again.
The number 2, I have used the number 2. Yes.
Is that a lawnmower underneath it? It looks like it.
It's Jaguar again.
Yeah, Jaguar.
That's actually not the shirt being worn. That's the actual Jaguar just worn out.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody folded up this Jaguar and put it on the shirt. But yeah, I don't think I've ever bought a product because it was on a race car. I can't think of a time that would have happened.
I mean, I've definitely seen things that went, "Heh, neat." Like
Yeah.
anytime I see Blottapunk, it's like, "Huh,"
Right.
but I would never buy it.
No, not their stuff.
No. Yeah, I mean, when I would see Copenhagen in the store, I'd be like, oh, AJ Foyt says to chew this tobacco. But, I was 5, so I didn't buy any.
But
The one thing that always spoke to me was Marlboro.
really,
Yeah, even though I never smoked.
but bring it
But I
back.
wanted to.
Smoke.
That's all that said to me.
Bringing it back to movies, though. We were just talking about the Days of Thunder cars and wondering if City Chevrolet was a real thing.
Yeah.
Mello Yello was something I definitely tried because of the Tyco car, because I've been seeing it for like most of my
Yeah,
life.
you
and
know
I
what?
never drank one.
So Mello Yellow was on one of the movie cars. It was on the Cole Trickle, the car that Cole Trickle has when he's filling in for Rowdy Burns. Magically, even though he was sponsored by Superflow before, which is an Exxon product, when he takes over for Rowdy Burns, Exxon is like, no, we're not going to sponsor you anymore, even though both these cars were sponsored by Exxon. He picks up a Mello Yello sponsorship, which I guess Coca-Cola was happy enough with the results from that then the following year they actually sponsored Kyle Petty's car in NASCAR with the same livery except different number.
Well, because they really wanted him to be Dick Trickle and not
Cole Trickle.
Cole Trickle, whatever.
And not Dick Trickle, yes. Kyle, we'd like you to be more Cole Trickle and less Dick Trickle. That was what they said in the meeting.
I actually think that he needs to be more of a Dick Trickle. Because then we wouldn't have to listen to him anymore on Sunday. For those 5 people that listen to NASCAR.
So, yeah, Mello Yello, living in the North was not a product that, we ever saw.
Or Hardee's.
Or Hardee's, for that matter.
Hardee's.
Hardee's, I would see, like, if we were traveling, I'd be like, oh, let's go to Hardee's. But
It's like seeing a Roy Rogers. It's like
You
just
imagine
a
all the
novelty.
people out in the West saying, "Why?
So
what's-
good.
Why does it say Carl's Jr. on it?" When they went to the West, did they put Carl's Jr. on the car?
They should have.
Did Cale Yarbrough ever drive a
I don't think so. I think it was always Hardee's, but that's a good question.
You need to ask him that while he's punching Donnie Allison in the face.
That'll have to be something we do one day, which is we just get a whole bunch
Punch
of our
Johnny
cars.
Allison in the face.
Well, punch Johnny Allison in the face, but I think we should also get all of our cars and be like, okay, what's the sponsor with this? What should we chew, smoke, drink,
Right.
appliance?
Cale Yarbrough was really punching Donnie Allison's fist with his head.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that worked because it inspired me to be curious about Mello Yellow. So there was that. Like, I
But
eventually.
does that mean that
tried
race cars work or movies work?
I don't know. It was a little bit of both.
Anytime I see something, I'm like, I wonder what that is.
I mean, I also had an RC car of the Mello Yellow car from Days of Thunder.
That's worth money.
Yeah, it's somewhere horribly, horribly broken.
I always wanted a Martini when I first saw those cars.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I always wanted Golf. When I was a kid, I didn't know what it was.
Golf the gas with guts.
Exactly. John Player. I wondered who he was.
I had a John Player Lotus.
And why
just,
are you cutting silk?
I had a lawnmower painted as John Player.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I really wish we had a photo of that.
I do too. I wish I had a picture of the lawnmower. I
The
was
fact
thinking
that you
about
just
it.
believe something I made up right now is even better. So
Well,
John Player really does have his effect.
Sadly enough, when I was actually thinking earlier today, I, as you saw, applied a BT decal to my lawnmower to make it better. But when I did that, I was thinking about when I was growing up, the lawnmower that we had, my dad had put a PPG IndyCar World Series sticker on the side of it, which, given that we consider anything with four wheels and no fenders to be an Indy, that was
Immediately Kevin's response. to that
strangely
photo.
prescient, yes. I wish I had a picture of it.
The John Player special vending machine.
I'm sure this is all stuff one of these days we could Photoshop just
He
for kicks.
only likes
Yeah.
dark chocolate.
We should establish a character of John Player and just have him be
A Simpsons
international
character.
man of
Troy
mystery.
McClure can be.
John Player.
You may remember this John Player special for other John
Other
Player
times, instead of
specials.
special, you felt limited.
Honestly, when you guys are saying that because of the color scheme, I'm just thinking of the Johnny Walker character because Johnny
yeah.
Walker black. So I'm just seeing like a guy with like a black and gold suit with a top hat.
Well, another sponsor I always thought was cool was Skull.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the Skull Bandit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always thought of Harry Gant.
Right.
The answer to every
Although-
NASCAR trivia question.
Around that time, Harry
biggest
Gant had
Ford.
a Skull Bandit Oldsmobile, and then Rick Mast had a Skull Classic Ford, and there was a different team.
Didn't Rick Mast push Gant to the
Yeah.
win at Talladega or
I
something like
think-
that?
I actually, this is sad, but it's true. Even though all of this happened probably upwards of 25 years ago, I was just thinking about it the other day for reasons. And I was like, why were there two cars on different teams sponsored by the same thing? And I looked it up, and it was that the team owners were brothers, and they had gone their separate ways, but they somehow both kept the
Like how Bash
sponsorship.
Pro Shops is now with like 5 different cars.
Sure,
But even in F1, Red Bull has two teams.
that's true. Yeah,
And don't they use different motors?
I believe that's
One is
the
like a
case.
starter out thing.
Well, yeah,
Well,
Toro.
there's Red Bull, which is the actual team, and then
Right,
Toro
then
Rosso,
Toro
which is
Rosso
the
is
feeder
the
team.
feeder team in theory.
Which, shouldn't that be Formula 2?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I mean, and this is, now we're really in the weeds, but if you're going to say that the champion of Formula One is the world champion of driving, which is technically what the title is, like, it's a little weird that there's guys that are in Formula One at all when they're in their teens and early 20s. I mean, I would think, like, you would have to build up to it somehow, logically, but...
Yeah, but you can't argue with the reflexes of it.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, realistically, you can't argue with the
How old
results.
how old was Mansell when he won his?
He was like 38.
something.
Yeah.
His mustache was already well developed.
He just
by
had a
that point.
birthday this week. I didn't catch how old he was, but
Well, him and his mustache have different birthdays, so I can see how it's confusing.
yeah, and his mustache is dead, so
In memorial.
What a legend.
it's the mustache was.
It
Yeah.
died with the Williams.
No, he kept it until he retired because he had it
It
when
was
he
a shell. of
when he
his
came back with
former
McLaren.
self.
Maybe that was why he couldn't fit in the car. Was
That and
his
he went to
mustache.
kart.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, where my brain's at right now is how do I
Didn't he
become
win
Nigel Mansell for
Didn't
Halloween?
he win the kart championship the following year too? Like
Yeah,
he
he
won
did.
it, right? He went simultaneously.
Yeah, in fact, the 90 Prost had not yet clinched the 93 F1 championship, which obviously Mansell wasn't attempting to defend his title, so he wasn't going to win it. But technically, no one had won the championship yet, so technically he held both those titles for
At the
a
same
matter
time.
of days. So, well done, Nigel.
High five himself.
Yeah.
His mustache like comes off to one side. And
High five the other side. Yeah, actually, I was at the race at Nazareth when he clinched the kart championship. I got to meet him in the paddock before the race because with kart back then, as with IndyCar now, if you pay a relatively small number of dollars, you can go wherever the hell you want at the race.
You can hold up Scott Dixon at a Taco Bell.
You can do that for free. In fact, you can make money doing that.
Scott Dixon might ask you to now that we're searching for sponsorship.
Maybe he'd be sponsored by Taco Bell.
Oh.
So, were you there in the era where the drivers were drunk or wired?
Wired more.
Wired.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and still in all, if I go to a race now, which I don't do that often, if I can't like walk among the teams working on the cars and stuff, I feel like I'm missing out because both IMSA and CART had that experience available pretty much to anyone, and so I grew up with that being part of the going
The
to a race experience.
We more or less did that at Grand Am.
Yeah, we were able to do that at Grand Am.
That was a dull race, though.
Yeah.
Grand Am's a boring series.
Yeah, well, it's dead. So I mean, well, because
Isn't it Tudor now?
it merged with the American Le Mans series, and now it went back to just being called IMSA. So
Yeah.
WeatherTech.
WeatherTech is the sponsor now. It was Tudor, which was a brand of watches I never heard of, and now it's WeatherTech, which is a brand of floor mats that you can't help here.
Every other car and driver
Yeah.
page.
Every page of every car magazine, every commercial on any car related show on TV, or even not car related show on TV.
Oh God, I miss Speed Vision.
Yeah.
What other movies?
I was actually about to say, like, we pretty much hit them all. I mean, unless you want to count Smokey and the Bandit. Like,
Gone in 60 Seconds had a really cool scene. I mean, that Eleanor Mustang is probably on everyone's wall, including mine.
Yeah.
Bullet probably counts too.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, we're getting into car movies rather than racing movies, but that's fair enough.
Ricky
A racing
Bobby.
movie is a car movie with a terrible plot.
Basically, yeah. I
Or
mean,
by NJ Hobby rules without a number. We could just, like, if you focused it on the car from Gone in 60 Seconds, you could just tape a number on the middle of the TV screen and it'd be like, oh, wow, he's racing a race car on the streets. He's driving down the Long Beach Pier. with
There
a
are
race
so
car.
until we started sitting down and actually recording these, the number of NJ Hobby memes seemed like a relatively low number.
Nicolas Cage isn't even wearing a seatbelt in a race car.
just think the promotion we could give NJ Hobby if we started, just throwing the memes
We
around.
better not say Nicolas Cage again. He might ask for money to fund his castles that he's still trying to pay off with his shitty movies.
Yeah. One that we didn't address and I haven't actually seen is Winning with Paul Newman.
What? I've
Yeah.
never heard of that. What
I
is
guess
Yeah.
that
that?
was a Charlie Sheen thing.
No. Yeah, Paul Newman. It was actually, they filmed it actually at the Indy 500 in the mid 60s, and I guess that was what got Paul Newman into racing, which, another guy who, while being, a big Hollywood star, turned racing into his, pet project on the side, and actually had some moderate success as a driver. Won some SCCA championships driving his Datsun.
Was that Le Mans that the Muscle Milk guys won, or was that something else?
Oh yeah, you know what? They didn't. I don't think they ever won Le Mans itself because the factory Audis and Peugeots were ruling that at the time. But
They won something.
they did win some races in the American Le Mans series.
LMP2?
They
which
were
would've
in
been-
they were in P2 with a Porsche Spider, and then they moved up to P1 actually with a Aston Lola.
And the reason I bring them up is because you said, like, people who aren't normally race car drivers having success. Apparently, especially now these days, a whole bunch of rich people can get together and say, we don't care if we win money or not, we just want to drive the car around
Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
have success with it.
Yeah, I mean, the age of the gentleman racer is alive and well. Partly because racing is so expensive, and because sponsorship is so hard to come by.
The reason I call them the Muscle Milk guys is because they were just the owner of the Muscle Milk
Yeah, it
company.
was Greg Pickett, who's in his late 60s now. Actually, I think they just won. I think they had a class win in IMSA a couple weeks ago in the GT class, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so if you are a rich man out there and you want to own a race team and race in it,
Yeah, no, there's nothing stopping you. I mean,
we highly suggest it.
at Le Mans, there's actually a separate GT Pro category and a GTM category where you have to include at least one driver who is considered an amateur in the FIA
And the purse is
licensing
different or
system.
something.
It's a different class, so like you can win the amateur class without being ranked against
With
the
three
class.
pro drivers and one schmuck.
Oh,
Yeah,
hey,
pretty
here's
much.
Tom Christensen and Hurley Haywood with some amateur.
Yeah, pretty much.
Speaking of amateur drivers, Kev, how are we doing on getting that car for Project BTE Citrus?
I'll let you know tomorrow.
Really?
I actually I'll ask about it tomorrow.
Nice.
I'll be going up there and
Oh, okay.
The
I'd
Citrus
say I
project
knocked
is
on its
alive and
door,
well.
but
Because
probably gonna
after you showed me
bust
that Dustbuster Lumina today, which I had also seen on my own, I kind of wish we had one. But
Dustbuster Lumina.
the Dustbuster minivan,
Oh, that's right. That felt like yesterday.
no, that was today. It was while you were on your way here.
The monorail.
Yeah.
Monorail.
Well, that's a thing that will.
I've sold these to Ogdenville, Shelbyville.
And by gum, it put them on the map. Yeah, it would be nice if we ever got anywhere with that project. Actually, funnily enough, that picture you showed me was from the race we had talked about aiming to have a car ready for. So.
So we have a whole year to get that car under a tarp
Well,
to
there's the
stem any
road. There's the
bleeding.
road rallies too. I think that would be cool.
That might be more attainable, except for the time commitment.
Yeah.
But the financial commitment is less, which is probably, as far as I'm concerned, a good thing.
We could just take a picture of our favorite stock car racers and like that'll be our mascot. You know.
Yeah, I mean the Le Mans, the Lemons Rally is probably a little bit more attainable because the price
just
cap
totally
is not.
leave the car there when we got to wherever it is.
Yeah, the price cap is not really an issue. I mean, it's more of just a scoring penalty. So,
How many Waffle House waffles can you get?
but the idea of spending 2 weeks with you idiots is
Especially when my vacation's already spoken for.
yeah, and mine is also so.
We'll see where Project Citrus goes. I mean, Project Podcast got off the ground, and I was always the guy who said this would never happen. So
I could
Yeah,
just leave
sure
it
showed
and
me.
have the
Here we are in
bird.
our 11th episode. So
hooray, we made it to double digits.
yes,
Happy August. What's today? 9th.
25th,
2011D.
25th. Yes.
Hope you had a good summer.
Labor Day next week.
I hope that one dude from Sweden has made it past the episode.
Oh man, we forgot to ask him how he enjoyed our other video.
How did you
mean,
like the other video?
How do you like the other video, single fan from Sweden?
Much better than this one, I assume.
Guarantee you, if that dude's still listening, he's so freaked out right now, he'll never listen to us again.
What if he actually liked
They
Driven?
keep talking to me directly.
What if he liked Driven and that's like a movie that they just got this year and he just saw it and he hasn't
Oh.
seen Rush yet?
And he
just ruined it
unsubscribed.
for him.
He
Oh my
unsubscribed
God.
when we.
I would like to
bashed
point
him.
out that Sweden is not a third world country.
No, it's not. That's true. I don't know why they
He
would get.
probably just actually saw the footage of Niki Lauda being burned at the Nürburgring.
Also something they would have seen immediately after it happened, but okay.
In fact, in the 70s, there was a Swedish Grand Prix on the Formula One calendar. So
Wow, they had to wait a while to see it. Did they not let people from Sweden in?
yeah, it was blacked out in person. They actually held black sheets up.
Yeah.
They held mirrors up. And retro reflective camouflage was born.
That seems like something that, because I've seen that car float around Jersey City. Somebody has a car that they completely chromed out.
Really?
Part of me wants to do that to a race car just to be a dick.
Yeah, that
just
would be.
just have a 100% chrome car on a nice bright sunny day.
Like that diner in Westfield, Vicky's, that used to be there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could enter Driver Chrome as Jacques Villeneuve's name in F1 World Grand Prix and experience it in 64-bit glory.
With all the fog you could ever want.
Yeah,
On a
you
clear
can
day.
look at all the fog reflected in your car.
I would probably bring the fog closer.
He's out. 20 to go.
Ralph's out. 19 cars left.
Well, when you expect apparently 25 of your cars to go up in a fireball.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I could just sit there and loaf around and still finish like 8th. And
Yeah, they do drop out pretty quickly. Now we're talking about F1 World Grand Prix, which we have located since the last time we
Oh,
talked
you
about
found
video
your
games.
copy?
I did. It was in my mother's house.
I saw a copy after I paid $7 for a
Yeah.
car.
It was there, and yeah, it was with my original N64, which is there. This is another N64 I had picked up when I was in college. So, I assumed it was here, but it was there.
Well, thanks to the magical piracy boxes we totally don't own.
Right.
Hopefully, soon enough, we'll be able just to do whatever we want as far as N64 goes. And if we're really ambitious, we'll find a way to capture footage
Yeah.
for the next video game episode.
Yeah, so we can actually show you the games we're talking about, other than the screenshots that I
We
threw
need to
in
play
last
some more
time.
Danny Sullivan again.
Yeah.
Do we do the music?
That'll probably be like our first T-shirt, just a Danny Sullivan thing.
Do 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 do. Hurry up and buy shit so I don't have to. You spent
There's
your
the third
$100,000 on your engine. Why didn't you let me buy best stuff, as in one brake, one engine, and 2 turbos?
You have chosen Power Driver.
I think the BT merch will have to start with the little Al thumbs up and the Danny sunglasses.
We could take the old BTE logo of us punching each other and put Danny's face on one and then little Al's face on a totally separate one of him punching his wife.
Yeah.
Who would Danny be punching?
Well, that's a good question.
Who did he wipe? Who did was in that wreck?
Oh, and he punted Ari Lyondike
There you go.
into
Nobody likes Fabio anyway.
into Alistair Jr. in that clip. It's actually little Al that got taken out.
If you think about it, Ari Lyondike looks like Fabio after he ate a shitload of Dominoes.
Actually, now I think about it, that'd be a fun Perler Bead project. BTE, the original logo of 2.
Oh yeah, it would be.
Let's do a BTE one.
A BTE, I love the, let's jump further deeper into the weeds. The BTE design where we just used to cut people's heads out and put the logo in.
Oh, we still do that. What do you think the homepage is
Still
now?
it's still the cover photo on our Facebook page. Is BTA logo as the face of Sir Paul Drayson with his electric Lola LMP.
Well, we've proven we don't have faces either. We just have giant BTE logos.
It's true.
All right. So, I mean, we're about 50 minutes in. I think I'm okay with calling this one. What do you guys think?
I could talk about Danny Sullivan some more.
That'll be a separate video. Just Kevin talks about Danny Sullivan for 5 minutes.
How many different beer sponsors do you have?
Miller in various flavors, because it was the red Miller American, which was just for Miller in general.
Then High Life.
Then Miller High Life. Then the last year with Penske, he was in a Marlboro car because Miller had gone to Pat Patrick's Alpha team with Roberto Guerrero driving. But then I guess he really liked being sponsored by Miller because he followed, well, apparently Alpha offered him a lot of money to, upgrade the driver situation as they were trying to develop their engine. And he took it, and probably for the worse because it was a really terrible engine. But so Genuine Draft there. Then he was teammates with Little Al on the Gallus team, and he was sponsored by Molson for a year. Ooh. Yeah. And then he was out of kart for a year. He did DTM with Alpha. I guess Alpha felt sorry for him after ruining his IndyCar career. And yeah, I guess that was it for beer sponsors because he did one more year in kart in '95, and that was with the Pac West team sponsored by Visa.
Didn't he run the Brickyard 400 that year too? Or was that
that's
94?
right. Yeah, 94. The first year they did the Brickyard 400, he ran that, but he wasn't sponsored by a beer there. So the answer is he was sponsored by two different beers, Miller and Molson.
They still let like pretty much every racing series have beer sponsors, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No series is sponsored by a beer right now, so
No series is sponsored by a beer, but you can still have a car, and you can't have a tobacco anything.
Right.
no.
Bye Winston Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy Spencer had a ride for that.
That's right. Jimmy Spencer had a Winston car in Winston Cup. And then
23, the no bull car.
yeah. Was that before or after it was a Camel car? Because they were the same company.
Yeah, there was a ton of
Camel
Camel
was
cars.
in the 90s. Like in the early
90s, yeah.
And he was also sponsored by McDonald's.
Yeah.
His only win came in the McDonald's car at Daytona.
That's right. That was the Junior Johnson McDonald's car 27, right?
Yes.
Which Hut Strickland drove the
And-
first year. And then,
Technically, is Ferrari F1 still sponsored by Marlboro?
I believe so.
Technically, with the barcode.
I believe
Yeah.
the full name of the team is still Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro. So,
I thought it was Santander.
oh, is it? Is that
or
the title
UPS
sponsor now?
Or Ray-Ban.
Yeah, they do have a lot of other sponsors on the car now.
But Marlboro still is.
Yeah,
It's just the team, I think, is still called Scuderia Ferrari, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was a great boon to racing for 30 years. Was that it was the only place tobacco could advertise.
Bush years.
That's why there was so much money in racing from the early 70s until the late 90s.
Now it's gotten into another thing that can kill you, energy drinks.
That's true. Yeah.
Energy drinks like really seem to explode and kind of peter out, though. At least in where I'm at. Because like a lot of people, for the longest time, like instead of a cup of coffee, they'd have like a Monster, or a Rockstar, or a Red Bull. Like even you used to show up to NJ Hobby every week
With a
some
Monster,
sort of energy. Yeah. Was it Monster or Rockstar?
I still drink Rockstar. Then it was Red Bull, but Red Bull's like expensive as shit now for the small cans.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's like the Starbucks of energy drinks. It's bullshit.
yeah, it's literally everywhere now too. It's F1. Do they have a NASCAR team?
They used to. They used to have an IndyCar team as well.
It turned into BK Racing.
That's right. But no, I think they're only in Formula One now.
Twice.
Twice.
And they sponsor the New York Red Bulls,
Yes.
which is the. What happens if they ever lose that sponsor?
I
Isn't
think.
Toro Rosso sponsored by Red Bull Cola?
Yeah.
Is Red Bull Cola even still a thing?
I don't know.
There it might be.
There, as in not America.
Well, it's funny because Red Bull. I mean, Red Bull started sponsoring Sauber in the mid '90s, and I had no idea what the hell it was. Like, I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Like, Red.
Sounds like an investment firm.
Yeah, like what is Red Bull? Because Williams in the 1992 championship season had Bull as a minor sponsor, which was actually a computer company. But I was like, is that the same thing?
It's red now.
Red. But it took a long time for Red Bull to find its way here, and then I was like,
And then
oh,
it
the Sauber
exploded.
juice.
It was the first like energy drink out because like Jolt Cola was there beforehand.
Yeah.
But people thought of that
For a
as,
long
that's
time,
just
but-
soda with a shitload of caffeine.
Yeah, that's just for nerds to stay awake while they're gaming. Yeah, so
Jolt and that ever popular drink balls.
Surge.
Surge too.
Surge.
yeah.
Surge you can get on Amazon now.
I know. You gotta buy a pack. You know what else was good? Vault. Which was pretty much like Surge. Remember they
Vault.
remade that?
I remember Vault for a little bit. Yeah.
That was good.
Is
Also-
the Surge you can buy on Amazon new old stock, or are they actually making it again?
They never stopped making it in the Netherlands, so they
Ah.
just essentially Amazon became the sole importer.
The Surge is essentially.
And they also make
Mello
Ecto
Yello.
Cooler in case you ever want that.
For us.
I lived on Ecto Cooler when I was a kid. Although my grandmother is the one who really got hooked on it. No joke. I would do her food shopping, and she would ask me to pick it up every week, and she would freeze it and turn it into a strange frozen treat.
I mean, it sounds tasty as a strange frozen treat.
Yeah,
It comes in
tried that with
cans now.
soda all the time, and it's never worked out.
Yeah. Well, now we're
Yeah,
possibly as deep in the weeds as we've ever been.
I think we should go ahead and call this.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks again for joining us for Best Podcast Ever. Again, if you have a request, we've been known to make entire episodes based on a single request, so feel free to leave your questions, requests in the comments. Like and subscribe. And as always, we are best team ever, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, just don't request that we don't do the show anymore because we kind of enjoy doing this.
Yeah, this is fun. See you in September.